October 26, 2020. I need a motion to approve the minutes of September 28th meeting. I'll put the motion forward.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Etna and Jack Diamond, and get the blank sometime. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. We'll go into the action agenda, new business item. I'll turn it over to Joanne.
Good morning. The only resolution I have on my agenda today is to authorize the agreement with Smith Trend. So this is just the agreement that we do have every year for the weekly and monthly reports that I receive. In the past, it's been under $5,000, so I may not have had a resolution before. But because it's over the $5,000 mark, I do need to come to the committee. So I'm here now because I would like it to be in effect for January 1 so that we can just continue receiving the reports.
All right, need a motion on that?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Frazier, we got a second? Second. Mr. Diamond? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mike Wild. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I did have a question.
Mr. Wild.
Mr. Wild, sorry.
I'm sorry, you're pretty quick on me, Gene. I'm sorry, I should have interrupted earlier. I had a question for Joanne, and Joanne, I apologize. I didn't think of this until this morning. But the question I have is, STR, the Smith Travel Report, gives us occupancy and they give us average daily rate. Is that correct?
That's correct. There are a number of other things.
Right. No, I recognize that.
Demand.
So where I'm going with that is that we should be able to determine what percentage of our total OCTAX revenue is represented in the STR report. So if we take the occupancy times the average daily rate, we'll know what basically everyone is reporting. And then we can compare that to what we actually get in occupancy tax. Is that a reasonable approach?
Well, the consideration is that STR is only the large branded properties, so you will have all of your other, several hundred lodging properties that are paying tax. I mean, it would give you a good idea since they certainly, the branded properties have a large number of rooms, but it's not the entirety of revenue, OCTAX revenue.
And we make a lot of decisions based on the STR data. And I'm just curious what percentage of our total occupancy tax revenue is represented by the STAR report. No, I'm catching you off guard. I realize that, but I think it's important for the tourism committee to consider, all right, we're going to invest some more money in the STAR report, but what does it truly tell us? And what percentage of occupancy tax revenues are represented by that information? But that's it. I'm in favor of the resolution, but something going forward that I'd like to understand a little bit more. And Joanne, maybe we can work offline together on this.
We'll see if we can get back to you on some of that information because there are other people question that too. All right, thank you, Mr. Wild. All right,
Gene,
Dennis, yes.
the STAR report is used by basically the larger motels. There's a tremendous amount of information on there, and they use it diligently. Some of them live and die by it.
Mhm.
And I don't know where you're going with the other thing there at all.
Well, it's
Mike's one keeps track of it.
It does, but we make a lot of decisions based on the STAR report. And if it's 25% of our total occupancy tax revenue, maybe we need to be looking for some additional data somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think we make all our decisions for tourism on just that STAR report. There's a lot of other information to gather to,
Well, we know Gene doesn't.
Andrea, did I see your hand up?
Thank you. No, Joanne addressed it. I just was pointing out that the STR doesn't represent all of the properties, so we can't use it as a reporting tool for the whole thing. That's all.
All right, any other questions? Move along for, all in favor?
Aye.
I was in favor, yes.
Opposed? Passed. All right.
Okay, moving down to discussion items. I do think that item A will be a resolution request, but I wanted to bring this to the committee. So this is our broadcast and digital media buy contract. We've been with Workshop in Lake Placid for the last 4 years, and they've done an excellent job for us. When we went out to bid last time, we had 5 responses to this bid. This time around, we had 15. So there were quite a few to consider. I did include the bid tab sheet with the agenda. One of the things that we look at is their fee, and you can look on the bid tab sheet. It ranges from 0% commission rate up to 20%, but fee is only one thing that we consider. When you look at someone who's saying, I have a 0% commission, well, you know that they're going to make some dollars on this contract. So if you read back, to page 50 or 53, you'll find out that there are other fees associated with this. So when Peter and I sat down to evaluate these, we ruled out the first 2, the lowest. They came back in terms of the flat rate commission fee. And when we look at the 3rd and the 4th, they were very close in their commission fees. BBG&G came in at 4%, and Ad Workshop came in at 4.25. But we also look at other things that each of the vendors offer. BBG&G did the report for us a couple of years ago that you're familiar with. They would be a fresh look at, broadcast buying for Warren County. I've been pleased with the work that Workshop does. I do like the fact that they are located here in the Adirondacks. All of their employees live and work and breathe tourism in the Adirondacks. They have a good relationship with Isle of New York and Visit Adirondacks. They also do the media buy and PR for our Adirondacks counterparts. The difference in fee is 0.25%. So when you're looking at $1 million contract, it's only the difference of $2,500. I will note that my up to spending amount is $1.25 million, although I did not put that in my budget this year. I only have 1 million, which is what we've had for the last several years. I just thought that as we move forward, assuming that we are very successful and we bring in additional occupancy tax, there may come a time when we may want to increase that spending so that 1 million, $1.25 million is just a little buffer. We can go up to that amount, but we do not have to spend that amount. So the choice today then would be, and if anyone has questions, I certainly have all 15 of these complete responses in my office, or we can talk about it today. If anyone has questions.
Joanne? Yes. So you're looking at $1 million contract.
That is correct.
So the tourism budget is what, 2.2?
Approximately, yes.
So you're looking at approximately half of your budget's going on this one contract.
Correct. That's the gist of our tourism promotion. It's broadcast, it's video, it's digital, it's social media. It is what we do.
What kind of kickback do you get from this? How do you know where they doing what they're doing and where?
I get a very detailed report after each season. The placement, how each of their metrics are performing with the markets that they're in, the frequency, that our ads are run, the cost per click or the cost per ad.
So they have some metrics on how many people are hitting their ads.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, great. Okay. Thank you, John.
They've been in to address the committee. I think that they were here in 2019.
Right.
They actually were on my agenda earlier this year, but time constraints and COVID, they just did not happen to come in to make a presentation or hop on a call, but they are always willing to do that and do that often with me. Anytime I have a call or I send a message, they are quick to respond.
Well, that's good. Thank you.
Dennis, just, I did some research, we've been working with these guys for quite a while. And I just went with the last 5 years of what we've done here in the county as far as sales tax and op tax. And from 2015 to 2019, the sales tax, the op tax revenue has gone up 600,000. That's almost 100,000 a year. And the sales tax revenue has gone up 6,500,000. That's also over $1 million a year. So to me, when I look at some of this stuff, and I know everybody hates when I say this, but that shows me ROI. We're spending X amount of dollars to bring in this kind of money. I think any business that has a budget like we have and bring in this kind of money would be happy with the results. So that's just pointing that out, not for anything, because I'd like to stay with the ad workshop, only because I think there's still probable times. We don't know what's going to happen come the first of the year. And I really hate to deviate and change course in our advertising and change people this year. Maybe at the end of 2021, it might be an idea, it might be something we can work with. But this year, I'd really like to stick with what we have. And we know we can get a hold of them in 5 minutes. They give us answers. So we got a good relationship with them. So that's just my 2 cents. Anybody else have anything to say? Yes. Can't see the hand on the left. Who's that? Oh, Mr. Weil?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. 3 questions, maybe a comment or 2. Joanne, what was the 2020 spend budget for advertising?
2020 was just over $500,000. We cut that considerably for this current year.
500K, and we had a banner year. So
Well,
we're saying we need to go to,
came back to committee and made that decision to save some dollars early on when we weren't sure how things were going.
so is there a chance we can get the top 3 candidates, and excuse me, Dennis, just a couple more, the top 3 candidates to join our committee to give us a brief presentation via Zoom or something like that? I'd love to be able to at least hear what the top 3 from your selection have to say. Is that possible?
If that is the desire of the committee, I do have all of the bids here.
I'm not sure about the rest of the committee, but I would love to hear from a presentation from the top 3. I think I remember in 2019 when there was a gentleman that came in with a style of suit that was surprising to me, with his pant legs up to his knees almost. But I did enjoy the conversation about how they went about it, and just gives more detail in terms of what you're able to provide. And I'd like to see that before we made a decision. Hopefully the committee might agree with that. And thirdly, and I see Andrea's hand up also. Gene, I did a presentation and a review of OCTAX and sales tax, and it's not totally related to our tourism spend. It's related to the rates that everybody's getting, and the sales tax is truly a reflection of the general economy when you compare other regions to ours. So let's try to put it in the right perspective. I don't think that's a 100% way of doing it. It's an indicator, but it's not there.
It's an indicator, yes, sir. I agree with you there. All right, anybody on the committee have any questions? Should we move forward with this, or?
Andrea and I do, Gene.
Hold on a minute. I got somebody here in the building. Mr. Diamond, go ahead. Thank you.
I'm very comfortable with moving forward and awarding it to the organization from Lake Placid. We've had some history with those people, and looking at our past performances, working with them, as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, our occupancy tax has increased, our sales tax has increased. They are somewhat local. I have no problems with moving forward and awarding it to what Joanne has suggested because of her working relationship with that company.
Edmund, you have your hand up?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Diamond. I think we should go along with the ad workshop from Lake Placid. Joanne had gone through all the other ones and she's recommending to us that that's what she would like to go with. I think that we as the committee should go in that direction.
All right.
Yeah, Dennis and Andrew.
Mr. Dixon, can I see your hand?
I think Andrea is in front of me,
Okay, Andrew, I'm
but
sorry.
I do have a question, Jean, when she gets done.
Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome.
Two quick questions. Joanne, these are contracts that take effect January 1st, is that correct?
Right.
That's correct. So I wanted to be here a little bit early, so we were ready to go first of the year.
Gotcha. Is there decision-making happening now that will be implemented in January?
Just internally, not with this agency or either agency, no.
Okay, so are there any unintended consequences to following through with Supervisor Wild's request and therefore delaying execution of this contract?
I would just like a resolution in place by the end of the year, so we would just need to meet again, if that's the case, prior to the end of the year.
So, thank you. Thank you for being honest and open about that. To that, though, I will say, I think we've all been really impressed with Ad Workshop this year and how responsive they've been and willing to be flexible in this year. And that's got to count for something. Thank you.
All right, Dennis?
Thank you, Jean. Your second point, Mike, this has been an unusual year, and I've stated this before, and I'm going to state it again. The businesses in Lake George, the motel businesses, the rental businesses, did extremely well in August. And their kickback was two things, that people were traveling within New York State because there wasn't a problem with the quarantine. My wife and I camp every year. We go over to Vermont and camp over there. There's a nice area where they camp. We couldn't go. We wanted to go over for a weekend. They said I had to be quarantined for 2 weeks. So I kind of put an end to that. So people are traveling within New York State. And the other thing is so they're a gas tank and a day away, But the second thing was they got a lot of new customers. People that normally go out of state and decided or realized they couldn't do that. So they went in state. And they didn't come for as long a period of time, but there was a lot of them and they came for short stretches. So the correlation between the $500,000 that Joanne spent and what happened in the Lake George resorts is totally unrelated, in my opinion. Secondly, in response to your other question, I don't have any interest in interrogating these candidates. Joanne and Jean know these companies well. They've worked with them a long time. And I appreciate their input and I agree with them. I would say, though, that I would like, once they've awarded the contract, have them come in and give us an outline of what they're going to do. Tell us where they're going to spend the money and what they're going to do and how they're going to work around the COVID thing and whatever. So I'm in favor of the motion that's on the floor. Thank you, Gene.
You have your hand up? Yes, Ben?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. I would concur with Dennis. Maybe I'm missing something. We do respect to those individuals who would like to have these top 2 or 3 groups come in. I don't see what other information would be learned from that. It seems to me it's like a presidential debate. We already know where we stand on individuals. Let's go back to their history. Let's understand what we're hearing from Joanne and from Jean, and move forward. And then again, after we've awarded it, let them come in and present their game plan to us. Thanks.
All right, but one thing else, to make another comment, if we go ahead with this, why don't we think about having something in July or August of next year, an early type of contract set out, so we could have time to bring in the bidders, sit down. I mean, this is November. we're gonna be in November next week, and it's tough to get them in here. And, I don't think it's a bad idea, but right now, I'd really, my own person, stay the course where we're doing now, because I think it's working. That's only my opinion. So, anyone else? Who's down there? Oh, Rachel, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With all due respect to Supervisor Driscoll, I do think it's very different than a presidential debate, and I appreciate that commitment next year, Jean, to having them come in and present and give us more information. My question is specifically about an after-action report or any type of statistics or analytics that they could provide us after this past, contract that we had with them. Is there a report we can look at, that kind of summarizes? Did I miss that? I looked online, but I didn't know if maybe there was something that could be sent out, that talks about that type of an after-action report over the last bid that's been awarded to them.
I do
a lot
have
of-
a report from workshop, and I will share that with the committee this afternoon.
So we have gotten that, or we have not? I'm sorry, I have background noise.
I do have that report. I did not share it with the committee yet.
I guess that would be something that before the full board vote, I would just definitely want to take a look at. But obviously, this is a committee decision on how you proceed moving forward right now. But it would be great to have that information.
I can send that this afternoon.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions on this item?
Mr. Chairman, one more, if you don't mind. Mr. Chairman?
Just for a while, yes.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. My request wasn't to criticize Joanne and her team or Ad Workshop. It's really to kind of enlighten me on the different approaches towards advertising. And I'm being asked to make a decision. I'd like to be smarter about the questions that I can ask going forward by learning more about how the advertising works. But as a board member, I will agree with whatever the committee decides, but I'm also chartered to make sure we're making the best decisions. And I feel I need some more information, but again, whatever the committee decides. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we can move along. Can I get a motion? We got a motion on the table to accept that workshop. We got a second, I think.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
I don't believe you have a motion.
Okay, somebody make a motion, I'm sorry. Motion forward. All right, Mr. Diamond,
I'll second it.
Edna seconds it. We haven't, everybody discussed it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to your next.
The next discussion item is an additional STR. It's not a report, it's a research project that when the STR representative was here a year ago, Supervisor Wild posed the question, are there other destinations in the US that had a similar tourism economy similar to Warren County? So let's say they're open largely from May to October, that's their strong season, and then there are shoulder seasons and winter season. Are there other destinations that have successfully transitioned to a more year-round economy? So that's not a report that is currently available from STR, but they could undertake that as a research project. So I do believe that as part of my agenda, I had an outline from the gal at STR as to what she would do to come to that conclusion. So I don't know if Supervisor Wild would like to speak with that. The cost of the report is $3,500.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Separate contract for that.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Thank you. And thanks, Joanne. That was a good introduction. The whole idea is to try to identify places that have expanded their tourism economy. I'm not sure if I've found anyone within the county, whether it be a part of the task force or Mark Behan's community hospitality group, that can come up and say, some people have done it. Let's figure out what they did and leverage what they did for us to see if we can make it work. The whole idea is to give us a head start on trying to find more information about how to expand our tourism economy. And this was what I came up with, and I'm looking for the committee to support this.
Any comments?
So I'd like to, maybe what I should do is have a resolution, make a motion for a resolution to spend $3,500 with STR.
Well, before we do that, I think the chairman, you have, administrator, you have something to say?
Yeah, just a clarification, what are the deliverables, what are we getting for the 3,500? Are they doing the full study here in terms of identifying locations and what those locations did? Are they giving us recommendations? Well, I'm just a little foggy on what the deliverables are.
Joanne, if you don't mind, I'll go. The deliverables is just identifying those counties that have and regions that have made that shift in their economy, their tourism economy. They're not going to go into the hows and whys. They're going to look at their data, which is basically occupancy data, and see who's been able to expand their tourism season and present those similar regions to us. They're saying the top 5. But the whole idea is, let's say it's, to use a bad example, let's say it's Charleston, South Carolina, or something like that. Maybe not the best example, but pick a spot. If they've been able to expand their economy, how did they do it? And what did they use and what leverages did they pull to get their shoulder seasons more fully occupied, as well as expanding into other seasons of their tourism? So we don't know. I've been trying to figure this out for a long time. But the whole data piece is, here's 5 regions that have made this happen and made this transition. That's when we start looking into how and why. To answer your question, Administrator Moore?
Yes, that answers my question.
All right. Anybody else on the committee want to comment on it? Or-
I have a question.
Andrea, I'm sorry, you're in the mic. I didn't leave over to see you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thanks, Jean. Mike, I thought you said you found somebody to put up the money for this already.
I don't have anyone right now to put up the money for this.
Apparently I misunderstood then.
I can tell you that the Economic Recovery Task Force and Mark Behan's Hospitality Subcommittee is all for this.
But you didn't say to me in conversation the other day that you found somebody who would put up this money already.
I thought I had. I don't have anyone that's formally offered to put up the money for this. Tourism, we spend our money on advertising. Why don't we spend our money on, trying to figure out how to expand our season? It's $3,500. To me, it's a minor investment to take some more questions off the table.
All right, anybody? Who's that down at the bottom? Rachel, yes, sorry, I can't see it where I am. Go ahead.
That's okay, Jean. Thank you. I guess my concern with that, Mike, and I think I mentioned this before, is that we've paid for studies in the past. I guess I'd want to know what you hope to do with the results. We go through all our budgets right now, and I mean, I applaud the budget team and watching Kevin Garrity go through each department. But there were many times people were asked to cut $200, $300, $400. So to go out and spend several $1,000s on a report that I'm unclear if this board's even committed to, following any of the recommendations that might come out of it troubles me. I mean, we've done this in the past for a much larger number with the BBNG report. And even before that, there were OCTAX studies that were done that really we didn't follow. So unless there's some plan to what's the anticipated, results or what are we going to do with the results? Who's going to be in charge of that? How are we going to make those decisions? I don't know. I'd be really hesitant to be going out for any additional studies at this point, especially given the time of the year and the pandemic and everything we have going on. I agree. It's always great to get information, but at the cost of the taxpayer, I'm not quite sure it's a good investment at the moment.
I understand.
Andrea again?
Would this be an appropriate thing to partner with EDC on?
Well, there's a couple of groups out there. I mean, we can all get together and put in some part of it. It might be easier than us putting out 35 because we've already cut tourism budget by 14% for next year, so really not, there's a couple other different, things out there, that the tourism department was looking at. One that I liked a lot, but I'm not pushing it right now, is to get involved with the state of New York, which is doing I'll let Joanne explain it more, but it's doing a following of cell phone numbers from where people originate a cell phone and where they stay for a while someplace with a cell phone. That sounds to me very interesting. You want to explain a little of that?
Gene is referring to mobile visitor tracking. And so that would be tracking the cell phone usage and movement. So if a cell phone lives in Brooklyn and it travels to Lake George or Lake Placid or anywhere in the US, you can track that cell phone, how long it's here, does it stay for a certain amount of time, is it midweek, is it weekend, is it international, is it domestic travel? There's a lot of data that can be obtained from this program, and it is something offered by New York State. We're trying to get all of the counties to buy into that to lower the cost per county. I think it goes back to, and the next item on the agenda is the work of the Economic Recovery Task Force and some subsets of that, one of which is the Hospitality and Communications Group. And one of the many things that they're looking at is a strategic plan. So do we perhaps take a step back and say, okay, what is our strategic plan and how do any of these things that we're talking about right now fit into that? And maybe they do. But just, I think, part of the larger discussion. We can also have credit card data to see where the credit card lives and does that credit card come here and spend money, and do they spend money on lodging? And so there is quite a bit of research that's out there. It's just making that decision as to which is the most valuable for us to purchase.
Mr. Chairman, I believe I had a motion. I'm not sure if it was second to discuss this.
All right, we have a motion. Do we get a
I
second?
was gonna wanted to comment to the topic.
What's that?
I wanted to comment to the topic.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Don't we have to have a motion and a second to bring it to the floor?
No, not to bring comments to the floor, no. Just to pass a resolution.
Okay. My one motion was for the resolution to.
Okay, but first of all, I wanted to comment on the topic, Mr. Wild.
Go ahead.
I have to agree with Supervisor Seaver. I don't quite understand what we're achieving by collecting that additional data at this point in time. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I don't understand or recognize what we would be able to, how we would implement that data to improve what we've historically done to move occupancy tax and sales tax forward. I think the money would be better spent on promoting some of our local destinations, specifically with the colder weather coming in the future. So my position at this point in time,
Here.
I'd rather keep the money in-house in our budget rather than spend the money on a study that we're not quite sure what we're going to achieve out of it.
All right. Any more, well, Mr. Wild has a motion. Do we get a second to that?
So, Mr. Chairman, basically what I'm saying is no one on this committee wants to support identifying different counties and region in the country that may have been able to expand their tourism economy.
Well,
That's-
right now, I think it's not the time, and I think that's what they're looking for.
Okay, so basically the committee is saying, no, we're not going to invest.
You know, I have a comment.
Nice here. But why don't we check with I Love New York and see if see what they might have on file, because they do these types of studies too. Maybe this is something they've already entertained. They would certainly know in terms of other localities in New York State whether there's any models out there, and I'm sure that they've looked at this as well in terms of communities in other states. Maybe rather than do nothing, there's maybe a medium that we could do.
Ms. Hogan again? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to speak for the other members of this committee, but speaking for myself, I do support looking into this a little bit deeper. But as Joanne said, I support it as part of a whole plan, as part of a bigger picture thing, and I support looking for partners in this. And you know, we don't need to do it alone. Like Administrator Moore just said, there may be opportunities with I Love New York. There may be opportunities with EDC. I think we need to do this as part of a bigger plan.
All right, any other comments? So we can move on. All right, so we didn't get a second, so the motion's not on the floor. Let's move on to the next one, Joanne. We'll let Mr. Ryan check it out.
Okay, yeah,
We
we'll
can
look
get
at
back to you.
We'll look into it.
So my last item for discussion is and this is Supervisor Wild's Economic Recovery Task Force, and a subset of that is the Hospitality and Communications Group. So I know that I've had conversations with many of my committee members. Some are more aware of what's going on within these committees and subcommittees. It began as a group of private sector individuals, and I sat in, some of our supervisors sat in on phone calls weekly. You know, how do we move ahead during this pandemic summer? And we all worked together. We had press conferences, created events, you know, made sure that visitors knew we were a safe destination, and by all accounts had a successful summer. So as we move into the fall, the direction of the group seems to be changing a little bit, the dynamic of it. And there are a number of subsets and subcommittees that have been formed. The group is talking about fact-finding strategic plan, or fact-finding study to promote year-round economy in Warren County, creating a strategic plan, working with Supervisor Sieber on occupancy tax and the funding approval process and evaluation. There's a subcommittee on metrics and ROI. I know that they'd like to have a gathering, whether it's on Zoom or at a location later in November, to invite hospitality leaders to come in and discuss the future of tourism. So from my part, I do sit in on these many phone calls, and there are probably 30 or so other people. Ryan is on the phone call list, and a number of other supervisors. But I just wanted to put it out there that this group is meeting on a regular basis. There are a lot of good objectives. I'm not sure what my committee is aware of in terms of what's going on. I do answer to my committee, and I would just like the chain of command to come through my committee if I'm, you know, okay, Joanne, it's time to sit down and we're going to work with this group of people, and strategic plan will be the first thing, or whatever that direction happens to be. I would just like to maybe have a little bit of that conversation. I have spoken with Jean and Supervisor Frazier and a handful of others about that as we move forward, because it has been a year of change. But I just need to answer to and follow the chain of command with my tourism committee.
Like, any comments or any discussion on this? Mr. Ryan? Andrea, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Joanne, is it too much?
It's a lot of different directions right now. Many different little offshoots and subcommittees and subsets.
Okay.
So I'm happy to participate to the extent that my committee gives me direction.
Do you, I'm going to ask you to just be really, again, open and honest. How do you want to see this play out? You're the one in the middle here. I'm really putting you on the spot, and you can tell me to go away if you wish to, but I think we need to hear from you.
I think when I look at the many emails that are going back and forth and all of the work that is taking place, if I had to choose one thing, I think it would be the strategic plan. If we're all going to sit at the table, and who is that? And it's not going to be 31 people that are on this email list every week. But hearkening back to a few years ago, there was a tourism advisory committee and an occupancy tax advisory committee. And we started with that, but we didn't follow through with it. But to work with a handful of people would make it easier for me to bring back to, you know, what's the bottom line for me and what do I need to do and how do we work through this together? I think I would just like to see a succinct group of people at the table that are working on the same thing. I feel like it's moving in many directions, and I'll open up my email and we're working on this, that, and the other committee, and I'm just trying to stay on top of all of it in addition to what's on my desk every day. And I just need to know where my priorities are.
So is this the moment to transition that group to an advisory committee and have them report monthly to this committee?
It could be that time.
Well, that's a tough question to answer. I mean, you gotta remember back in February, I think, or March, we tried to bring 3 people in, we got voted down. That was the time to really start this advisory committee to help us out. And now if we can really decide now amongst the supervisors and the tourism department, maybe it's time to bring them in. You know, pick 3 people. We had 3 good workers that we wanted to bring in, and it was voted down. Maybe starting January, we should start all over again and try again. And I think that might solve a lot of double work and a lot of have just 3 people in here working with us on our supervisor and on tourism, and then we can go forward with answers.
So Joanne, are you saying that you're overwhelmed and not being able to keep up with what's going on with the hospitality?
Who's talking? Hold on a minute. Andrea is up. Go ahead, Andrea. Etna, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just don't think Joanne should have to be working with 30 people and feeling like she has to be answering to all 30 of these people. I head of tourism, and that's kind of what she should be doing, is running the tourism department. If we can help her, we should be, but your idea of maybe like 3 people is certainly better than having 30 people that she apparently all of a sudden feels she has to answer to, and I don't think that's fair to her. They have a wonderful job, a wonderful department. They've done a great job for us over the years, so I'd like to see it kind of move forward the way it has been.
Mr. Diamond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to agree with Supervisor Frazier in regards to that. Historically speaking, the tourism department's done a great job. The numbers speak for itself. If we focus on what we're doing right now, we'll continue to do it. If we want to listen to or communicate with some of these subcommittees, that's fine, but I don't think that's Joanne's focus. I don't want her to focus on that. I want to focus on what she's doing, what we achieved in the past.
Mr. Driscoll, you're on the committee. You have any comment?
Yeah, I agree with the comments that have been made. I also wanted to point out that if we're going to be inviting leaders from tourism, that we have individuals who represent each and every municipality in Warren County. We're a Warren County Board of Supervisors. Certainly, I recognize the importance and the revenues that the lake communities provide to the county. But Glens Falls does a pretty good job, and all of the towns throughout Warren County. I've been to each and every one of them. I've eaten, I've recreated, hiked, did a lot of things. And I want to make sure that those individuals are part of whatever discussions and conversations go forward. Thanks.
I'm looking around. Anyone else? Rachel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, selfishly, I think it was really helpful to be able to I very rarely call into those meetings, and it was nice of Jean months ago to let me know they were going on. And I jump on a Monday call every once in a while, but it was only selfishly for me, as we talked in our OCTAX committee about changing the scoring sheets and the application, to have so many people right there at one time eliminated a lot of other smaller meetings I would have to have. After our OCTAX committee agreed it was time to start looking at a change on our application. That being said, I think what Jack and Edna are both saying is important to take into consideration, but I would like to see us, if we're going to create an advisory group, and Jean, I think you're on the right track, but I'd like to disband the other two that we still have not dissolved by resolution. I mean, we've got a couple advisory groups out there that have not met in years, but we haven't gone through the process of disbanding them. And I get it. It's tough to undo laws when they're outdated in the state. It's the same with our advisory groups. I mean, they just kind of stick around, but we aren't adhering to our resolutions. And I know Amanda's got information on if one was dissolved. I know one wasn't, and the different dates. But I don't want to leave OCTAX out of this, and maybe Dennis could just weigh in with it as well. But I think there is a way to combine all of this into perhaps an advisory group, which is still what our resolution said way back when all of this started. And of course, that OCTAX fuels our tourism department. And maybe it is time to have that economic recovery task force was made out of an emergency setting. We're all kind of have our sea legs now, and let's not forget, it's not just additional work on Joanne. I mean, I think if you ask Don Lehman, he gets a lot of requests from that group as well, along with Ryan Moore. I suspect Amanda. I think it's very valuable, but at the same time, maybe looking at a long-term advisory group that's done by resolution is the most appropriate way to go. And certainly recognizing that chain of command, we're a board of committees. So I think you're definitely onto something, Joanne, and I appreciate you bringing the concerns to the committee meeting so that it could be discussed. But I wondered if maybe Dennis wanted to weigh in on those groups, or if there's a way to combine everything just into one, so we don't have like 3 different advisory groups that are all over the place. I don't think that's going to solve the problem.
Dennis, go ahead.
Thanks for sucking me in, Rachel.
Anytime.
When I first became chairman of the OCTAX committee, we had a committee, and it started out as 7 members and 9. And the last meeting we had, it must have been 30 people there. It was very informative, and there were people from all over the county there. But other than generating tidbits of information, it wasn't. It was way too big to do anything with it. We weren't really that well organized. We only had a couple meetings, and then the whole thing fell apart. I don't know. Sometimes they committees have a goal, and they get together and reach that goal and do something constructive. But a lot of times they just wallow in information forever. I don't know. I think we got a lot of information. We need to sit down and figure out what we're doing with the information we have. I think your efforts with the application and the rating scenario is an excellent one, and I'm looking forward to finalizing that. I think that'll help. But we have some other issues too that we really need to discuss about occupancy tax.
Well, Rachel, I think that's great, Dennis, but I think they should be separate, but that's only my opinion. I'm not trying to sway anybody. I think OCTAX is a thing in itself, creating a thing in itself, and I applaud you.
Oh yeah, I had no idea we were talking about anything but. I agree with you. The OCTAX is one thing, and the tourism is totally different.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say. I think OCTAX is one thing, and I think, Rachel, I applaud you for doing it, and I hope you can come up with a new way to get people money and find out what's going on. But the tourism is the advertising part. I think if we can go back to a 3-member board for OCTAX and a 3-member board to work with the tourism department, with those kind of numbers, you don't have 20 people trying to do the idea because it doesn't roll up into one. So, I mean, my thought was let's
agree with
try
you
to
wholeheartedly,
do
Gene.
a year and get these things done.
I agree wholeheartedly. I've said that right along. There's way too many people on some of these committees, and they're all over the place. They all mean well. That's not the point. You know, we got too many people in them.
Well, I'd like to go back and just think, it's just a thought, and I'm passing, we had 3 good people on the one we'd like to get on the board, and I think they're knowledgeable, and all of them, everybody knows, we could start there. With OpTax, we can get 3 different people that can work with that, and start it on January, and let's move forward into next year, and hope this pandemic comes to an end, or softens a little, and our tourism comes back, and everybody will be happy again, so. That's only my thoughts.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So I'm not sure if I totally understand where this is going, but it almost to me sounds like you're not happy with what the task force and the hospitality subcommittee is working on.
That's not true. Don't put words into my mouth. That's not true.
But hold on.
A lot of those calls also listening. That's not true.
But you want to bring it more in-house, right? So if I'm just not sure where this goes, because this group has been working hard to try to make things happen. And it sounds like this committee and a number of the supervisors want to go in a different direction. Or did I not hear that?
No, you did not hear that. But we're trying to get a fair amount of people. 3's a good number to come with 7 of us to discuss that stuff. So it's not true. We're not, they worked hard. Was successful for the summer, and now we're moving forward.
So we're moving on. So we don't need the task force and hospitality group anymore?
You're putting words into not what we're all saying, I don't think.
I need to be able to communicate with this group what was decided today.
Well, they should be on this. I'm pretty sure 2 of them are on. We're not saying no. We want their help. We want their ideas, but we don't want 30 different ideas coming out of one group. We have to manage it.
But I think this started with Joanne saying that she had too many things that were occupying her time. I didn't hear her say that none of them were of value. So maybe what the direction should have been to say to Joanne, pick and choose and play the leadership role and not have to respond to every single email. But I'm not sure the message, if the members of this hospitality group are listening to this conversation, what do you think they're taking away? Because I'm going to recommend they listen to this. What do you think their takeaway is going to be? Then I'm curious about what other people on the committee think about that.
Mr. Diamond, you have comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to Supervisor Wilde's questions, I felt some of the hostility that Supervisor Chairman did. He was putting you in a difficult position. If you're having a difficult time communicating our message back, we'd be more than happy to deliver a copy of the minutes and make that a little bit simpler for you to communicate back to your recovery, economic recovery group. Nobody here has taken a position and said, we're not happy with what you've done. You've done a very good job. But the question becomes, tourism is tourism, and that's run through the county, and it's run through Joanne's department. The only question I have is what your role is in developing tourism. I just think that, there needs to be a brief or a bit of separation between what we're trying to achieve here in tourism and what you're trying to achieve in recovery of the economics in Warren County.
And if I may, just a quick response. It's more than just the recovery. It's economic development as a whole. So where does that start and stop with tourism being 25% of our sales tax?
Mr. Chairman?
Andrea, yes.
Thank you. What I heard today was that there has been tremendous value. If there's one thing we've learned over the last year is there's tremendous value in public-private partnership. And that this committee is working very diligently to find a way to keep that flow of information going in a manner that fits within the constructs we already have. So there's no expression of lack of gratitude. There has been no criticism of anybody. In fact, everybody's been extremely complimentary and grateful, and that should be conveyed back. Absolutely. But we need to move forward.
Yes, Mr. Ryan.
If I like, just give me my perspective here as somebody who's been involved in, at least in the beginning, with the economic recovery group and tourism hospitality group, all the good efforts that have been going on. If you rewind 12 months ago, we were all saying what we would love to do is have all of these disparate entities get together and meet, even if it's once quarterly, meet 4 times a year, just so everybody talks and everybody understands what each other are doing, and we make a more solid effort to move forward as one, rather than having a whole bunch of different silos moving in their own direction. And I think we've accomplished that this year. It's fantastic that you have these groups that are getting together with so many people that are involved, that bounce ideas off each other and take care of a lot of granular things. We wouldn't have come through this year as strong as we did without it. And I think that those conversations ought to continue. These are, by and large, private sector entities that are getting together once a week, finding time in their schedules to do that, to talk it through and try to move together as one, rather than, as I said, a helter-skelter approach. I think that's good. I think that ought to be continued. My interpretation of this conversation today, what we're talking about here, is not dispensing with that, because there's tremendous value in that. As I said, that's something that we've always wanted to do better. We're now doing it better. Let's keep doing it. I think what we're talking about today is how to translate that into policy at the county level. And so if that, I don't recommend to you how you do it, but if that involves getting an advisory group together to be involved at the granular level with these groups, and then distill that into policy recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, that's my takeaway from this conversation. I think we're all saying the same thing, and that what we're all trying to do is not exclusive. I think we can move forward. Everybody's instincts on this are right. I think we just need to be clear about what we're doing.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ryan. Yes. Andrea, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrea.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we reconstitute the advisory committee to tourism, and that we pass a recommendation along to OCTAX to do the same.
All right. There's a motion on the floor.
I'll second that motion.
Edna seconds it. And do you have an idea of how many people you might want?
I thought we decided earlier in the year what a workable number was, and I can't remember. I'm sorry.
It's 3, but I'm just bringing it up to the floor now. So your motion is to have like an advisory board for OPEX as 1 with 3 and tourism with 3 as the other.
Can't do
To pass a recommendation on to OCTAX to consider the same.
tax a separate committee. You do tourism.
Yeah.
Stick to tourism.
Well, all right, I have to stick to tourism. Yeah, OPEX.
Right.
You're right, thank you.
Right. So what I was saying was that we either reconstitute the one that's already on the books, or we make a new one if we need to, with a workable number, and that we recommend to OCTAX that they consider doing the same.
Okay, that sounds better.
And we make sure that these advisory groups are representative of all the hard work that's being done in the broader groups. I think that's the other piece of what we're saying.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so we have that motion, we have a second. Can I say all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, it's approved, so we'll work on that. All right, our time is almost up, it is up. There's no pending items. Have privilege to the floor real quick. Anybody else have anything to say?
Mr. Chairman, I do real quickly, if you don't mind. I'm holding up my own meeting by talking, but can I just ask a quick favor? I'm not on your committee, but I'm looking for a resolution. I think it's important. You have a resolution that's still out there from an old advisory group. Is there a way we could just have a resolution to disband that? I believe that you have to do that to get rid of it.
All right. And I'll take a motion to expand.
I'll make that motion.
Last one, Dennis,
Yep.
and we got a second from Andrea. All right, so all in favor of disbanding the old one?
Aye.
Opposed? That's good. And we have the new one, which will be roughly around 3. And that's just for tourism, and we'll make the recommendation to them, to the OpTex committee to do the same thing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for including that. And I know I'll talk to Dennis about it, but I think it's important to highlight that this is exactly why when we make advisory groups, we go through committees. So I don't know if Mike maybe taking a look down the road, if that's something you're looking at with economic development, but I think Joanne brings up a good concern about having direction from too many groups, and that, I get these emergency groups and while they're formed and the valuable information, but I do think it's important that as a board, we pass legislation or resolutions that state we want these advisory groups. So it doesn't mean they're not valuable, because I don't think anyone here today has said it, but I do think there needs to be a formal type of process that the board votes on before having too many groups that overlap each other.
Thank you for your comments. All right, time's up. It's just open to any comment from Don Lehman, any comment?
Hi, Chairman Molina. There are no comments on YouTube as of right now.
Thank you, sir. Motion adjourned. Etna?
So moved.
Somebody said they don't know me, Dad.
Dennis Dickinson.
I can't. Who seconded it? Dennis, okay, thank you, Dennis. We're adjourned.